as some of you know, I do research that focuses on artificial intelligence and robotics and how we as human beings interact with them. So the first activity before I talk is imagine that your university has asked you to design an AI or a virtual assistant to help process promotion applications and create the shortlist for the committee. If you're not yet at that stage, imagine that they are processing scholarship applications. If you're from industry, your promotion application. How would you program it? Pull out your notes app, type on your laptop, use a notepad if you want to go old school. What criteria should it use to decide? Keeping in mind this is a machine, good with rules, critical thinking, not so much. How would you train it to recognise what is a good application? How would it decide between two close applications? What characteristics should the AI have? And would you want to program personality traits into it? So I'll just pause for a moment, let everyone think or write. Okay, so bearing in mind the virtual assistant that you've just designed, and also the fact that technology is not my friend, so my Slido poll is not working, I'd like to ask you a question. We're going to go old-fashioned, hands around the room. So the university is so impressed with all the hard work, they're going to keep all of the virtual assistants. They're all going to be in charge of promotion applications, and now it's time for your promotion or scholarship or whatever it is. When you put in your application, do you want the virtual assistant that you designed, or do you want one that someone else designed? Or maybe it doesn't matter. Hands up, doesn't matter. I'd take any virtual assistant. Yeah. Hands up, I want one that somebody else designed. Hands up, I want my virtual assistant that I designed to do my application. Oh, wow, look at that. Surprising number of people. So we've been dealing with AI or artificial intelligence in talking about virtual assistants, but this type of technology works everywhere, and I promise I'm coming back to this activity. And we can see that there's been a huge growth and continued growth in artificial intelligence revenue across the world. So this is something where we're seeing increasing developments in the technology. We're seeing it more and more. Now, a study that I did a few years back shows that humans tend to trust technology more when they have a hand in designing it, which we just beautifully illustrated in this room where we all went, oh no, my promotion application goes to my bot. Thank you very much. This tends to lead to high levels of trust and perceived utility in virtual assistants. And there was also a question about humanised technologies. So why would it matter if your virtual assistant was humanised or not? This is an example of anthropomorphism, attributing human characteristics to a non-human. And we often tend to rely on this a bit when we're in unfamiliar environments where we might feel a little bit nervous about how things are going to work out. For example, submitting a scholarship or a promotion application. We tend to also then feel a lot more connected to the anthropomorphized thing, and we tend to trust it more. So, bringing me back to the question, did anyone give their virtual assistant human personality? Anything? So did you make it positive, not positive, or did you stick with plain utility? So who went, basic functionality and utility in how I'm programming? Anyone add anything human? Okay. Who created a little version of themselves? You can tell me. No one's going to admit it. I promise this would have been more fun had the poll worked. And this is why we care. We tend to like to assign roles and rules for our robots and our AIs. There's a big difference between how we feel about this statement and that statement, based on the fact that both are humanised, but we have a certain reaction to Mr. Terminator over there, as opposed to the charming Pepper. That's why we care whether we're making things human or not. But is it actually a good thing to trust our virtual assistant that we've just created, our little AI babies? So researchers have applied a lot of effort to looking at the reasons that we will adopt or trust robots and AI agents. It's been a huge focus in recent years. And some researchers are now starting to go, well, wait, hang on. What if trust is not necessarily in our best interests? We can have too much of a good thing. Sometimes we trust too much and then we verge into over-trust territory. But sometimes we trust too little when we should be relying on a technology more than we do. So, for example, we know that humans will follow a faulty robot during a fire evacuation, but they won't necessarily trust an AI to detect cancers if even if it's been shown to do so with more reliability than humans. So with robots and AI influencing multiple service sectors, we need to get the balance right. We can't be over-trusting or under-trusting. Here is a lovely example. I love this comic. There's 2 slides, so this is the first one. This is from PhD Comics, and it's actually recreating and showcasing a study from Booth et al. So basically, if the robot's got cookies, we will let it into our house. Why is that a problem? That says flash forward to the robot apocalypse. Sorry, Zoom's in the way. And I think this comic just so nicely demonstrates why it's important that we get the trust balance right. And I was going to ask you a big question about whether you see any human biases. I won't, but just ponder on it. Did you see any biases making people let those robots into their houses just because they had cookies? Would you let a robot into your house because it had cookies? What if it was a robot that you designed as opposed to one that you'd never seen before? Would that familiarity make you want to let it in? Everyone's going to go home tonight and just look at their Roombas really suspiciously after this. So where are we at with this? This is a very new kind of research agenda, particularly in services marketing, focusing on over and under trust. To ensure a level of balanced trust, we need to understand the drivers of over and under trust and the differences between them. Whitney's presenting more on that tomorrow. We also need risk awareness, especially with AI, because it's intangible. We usually can't see it, there's no visual or sensory presence a lot of the time, so we don't think about it. We have an AI in our phones that's automatically correcting our spelling, but I'm never conscious of that before it gets something wrong. And yet it is literally reading all of my messages, so it can provide that service to me. We also need to determine how we decide when an AI should be trusted and who gets to make that decision. Ethical guidelines and thoughtful decision criteria are absolutely imperative, because who am I to stand up here and say, well, you should definitely trust medical AI because it's good for you? How do I get to make that decision? Who should be making that decision? How on earth do we decide these types of things? So I'm leaving you today probably with many more questions than answers, maybe with a healthy dose of suspicion about the AI and the robots in your lives, but maybe a little bit of hope as well about where we're going in the future and how we actually get a hand in designing the things that are going to help support and serve us in the coming years. Thank you very much.